G'day everybody, and for those who have come in late, you're listening to Expand the Fantasy Podcast.
He washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck, and upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, "I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die."
The Phantom,
the ghost who walks,
the Phantom,
enemies beware, the Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom.
We are Expand the Phantom Podcast from Chronicle Chamber. Our website is chroniclechamber.com, and you can contact us via email, which is chroniclechamber@gmail.com. You can also subscribe to us via YouTube, iTunes, as well as the various Android apps. This is January Comics and News. My name is Jermaine, and tonight I am joined by Stephen. How are you, mate?
I'm good, Jermaine, and yourself? Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
No, it's we've made it. we made 2020.
Yeah, but 2020 started off really well, just the same as 2020.
Yeah. How about you, Dan? How are you, mate?
Yeah, good, Jermaine. Good, Steve. Happy New Year, guys. Happy New Year for what it is. We move forward to the next phase of time, and we hope that it continues to get better. What does make things a little bearable is the opportunity to sit down and have a bit of a chat about Phantom, because as I was just saying before we started recording, might be on school holidays, but I've been a bit busy with around the house jobs. Jermaine, I know you have been as well, and so it's good to be able to put the paintbrushes down and the sanding blocks to one side and wash our hands carefully before we rifle through our Phantom comics.
Yeah. No, my wife's got me painting the house, and when I'm not painting, I'm reorganising the backyard because she wants a more zen entertainment area. So, I did get to go to Bunnings today, though, so that was a nice change.
Well, that's good. Just as you were talking there, Dan, I got a notification on the Vic Emergency app, and apparently there's a flood about 2 k's from my house at the moment. So some poor people, no, probably not poor people, unfortunate people are dealing with something extra just to start off the year.
Well, 2020 didn't have a flood that I can recall, so that was probably the last thing left.
Yes.
So that's no good. Well, our thoughts with those people.
Yes, definitely. So we're going to have some fun tonight. We're doing a comics and news. Now, we did one in December. We do try and do one once a month, but occasionally we kind of get behind. So what we wanted to do, we wanted to start the new year ahead of schedule, in a sense. So that way we're not reviewing 5 comics plus the annual towards the end of January, and you've got a 2-hour podcast. So let's see if we can maybe get this one down to an hour to an hour and a half. So we'll kick it.
I'll think of 30 minutes.
All right, we'll see how we go. So we'll start off with issue 1882, which is the Christmas special. It's got a beautiful cover by Luca Roberta. I think at this stage of recording, this cover, the original, is actually still available for purchase as well. If that interests you, maybe give him a message on Facebook. So, guys, what do you think of this?
Oh, well, I really enjoyed it. And if we're going to start talking about the cover, I sat down with it again today and just had another appreciation of Luca's work. I really like his Crouching Phantom there in particular, the lithe style of Phantom. He's not muscle bound, but he's certainly ripped, but it reminds me more of, I guess, a Wilson McCoy or Ray Moore type figure. The big portrait, I guess, of Heloise looking over the Phantom's shoulder there. Certainly on the socials didn't appeal to everybody immediately, but I think sitting with it looks really good, and I quite like it. So I might have to go and check out the original for that. Because it's not bad at all. And as a whole comic, I'm sure we'll talk about it in a second, but yeah, quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a wrap around. Dan, I know you're... So what were you going to say, Steve?
I thought the cover was very striking. I really liked it. Really stood out. And yes, people saying that Heloise probably wasn't looking like traditionally how you picture Heloise, but it's his job to make a cover and do his art the way he wants to do it. And It's Heloise to him, it's Heloise to us.
What I like about Heloise is, like, some artists will draw using a lack of a better word, like a porn star. They'll draw every female character. Where Luca has not done that. She's she's still pretty, but she's not something you expect on a cover of a Playboy magazine or something like that. So I actually like that.
If anything, she probably looks a little bit older than a teenager. She probably looks maybe early 20s, or maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
She's in that bracket, though.
Yeah. I can see where you're coming from. Now, Dan, as someone who in the past has almost demanded Christmas-style covers, does the holly do it for you, or is that Christmassy enough, or would you prefer a bit more Christmassy?
No, look, I got to say, I don't mind it at all, actually. The Christmas cover we got from Jeff Weigel a couple of years ago, and there was the one from Massimo Gamberi as well, were both excellent. I can see, though, if you did a Christmas cover every year, it probably would get a bit naff. I hope that's the sort of thing that the publishers keep in their kit bag, and I'd love to see a Christmas cover, I don't know, maybe every 3 or 5 years type of thing. So it is still in the rotation, but in the meantime, without going to the well too often, the sprig of holly is a nice touch.
See, I'd like it every year. Christmas is supposed to be over the top and a bit of fun and all that type of stuff. And if you do it every year, well, fantastic. And I only just noticed about the top and bottom of the cover. There's also they've got the Christmas holly and what have you.
Yeah, you've
right.
right.
Also got it underneath the Frew logo as well. You got the
we knew that part. That's what we mentioned about the little sprig. But the top and bottom.
Yeah, you're right. Now that I see it, of course it was always there, but I hadn't noticed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't until 30 seconds ago.
And Luca's signed on top of it down in the bottom right. Does that mean that this is on the original?
From memory, yes.
Find out.
Yeah, right.
What about the stories inside? Did you read these when they first came out?
Yeah, so I was mostly following along with all of these as they came out. As is the case with the dailies, sometimes you can miss 2 or 3 days or even a week and then pick it up again. So it was really good to sit down and read through the whole story and fill in some blanks, there were some interesting blanks that I didn't realize at the time that I'd missed. But really enjoyed that.
I was in the same boat. Not that I think I always keep up every day reading it. If I miss it in the paper, I go onto the website. But recently, when in one of the later stories, that have just gone, and the girls are staying or boarding with, is it Mrs. Daft or Daft? Yeah. I totally forgot how did that happen, and the answer came in the story. So, that's how they got there in the first place. Right. Because everything else I'd remembered, but I couldn't for the life of me remember how they came to board with her.
So we should say that the Christmas special collects the 3 newspaper stories. It's the daily Kit Writes Home, which is the 250th and shortest ever daily story in the newspapers. And also Heloise Comes Home, which... despite the title, probably only the first half actually deals with Heloise coming home. The second half is a ripper action sequence as Adam goes to rescue Indira Sahara, Cardia's mum, and the Nomad's wife. And I'm sure we'll talk about that shortly. And then the Sunday, the little detective who disappeared, and by Jeff Weigel, all written by Tony DePaul. So I guess the key part of this is that it's a collection. Do you feel like it comes out a little bit like Kids Out of Home is 2 years old by the time we read this? Do you feel like it comes out a bit late? I know that trend has been for Christmas specials to collect the newspaper stories, but would we like to see them come out, more promptly when the story finishes?
Twice a year. Like we're 2 behind now. Let's do another one in 6 months' time, and then another one.
I think even more regularly than that. I think we're that far behind with a few of the stories. I don't know. I'll have to double check, but I reckon we could maybe get 3 in.
Yeah, I think 2. I think 2. Get rid of a collector's replica.
Well, that's not going to happen. But I'd hope to see that they get the reprint some more soon, like whatever they have.
Yeah, and the benefit of doing 2 or even 3, as you suggest, Stephen, would be the fact that you can have more than just one colour issue per year. Because in 2020, this is the only colour issue, apart from the Triads trade paperback.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. So if they're doing, say, 2 of these or 3, like you said, you're doing a lot more colour issues, which then
that's if they have to do it in colour.
Well, I think they've started that tradition.
It's not make or break for me.
I think.
Well, funny you should say that, Stephen. We are looking at doing a podcast talking about the Fantomen colour, but we'll talk about more about that later. But personally, I like the colour, and I reckon if Frew are serious about experimenting with colour, these are a good way of doing it. Same as we'll talk about 1883 soon. But 2, you got to have more than just the one issue a year in colour.
I think that because it's originally published in colour, that probably makes it easier for Frew. That's one cost they don't have to wear. I'm leaning, and I have enjoyed, and I've probably been on the record as saying in the past that I've enjoyed the collection of the newspaper stories as a Christmas special, but it is starting to feel like it takes a little bit too long. And maybe I'm starting to think maybe it would be cool to have the newspaper story published in a Frew, within weeks of the story finishing in the newspaper.
That's how Jim did it.
I guess the challenge for Dudley and the rest of the Frew crew then would be that you don't know what the size of the story is that's coming at you and how many pages that's going to take. So I guess that's harder to plan for in the publishing schedule. I don't know what sort of communication they have with King Features about that stuff, but probably not much, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah. Going from past conversations, probably tiddly squat. And you can't, the way Tony DePaul writes as well is he will do a short story, then he'll do a long story, and then he'll do, so, you can't budget in a sense like Jim used to be able to, because when Jim did it, within a month they were out. I also reckon that Dudley and the Frew guys are probably a little bit more than just say a month in advance with all their issues and stuff like that as well.
Pretty much, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And also with the with Tony's stories, like some of them flow on naturally, and others are completely different.
Standalones. So speaking of the stories and what Tony's done with them, let's actually talk about Kit's Letter Home, for instance, as the first story. To summarise, we've got Kit in the Himalayas. Kit Junior, this is obviously the future 22nd Phantom. He's in the Himalayas training. He's pretending to be not only I can't remember which 2 Phantoms it is, but he's pretending to be 2 of his ancestors, and everyone's apparently falling for it. He writes a quick letter home and then burns it and goes to breakfast. It's basically just a catch-up of where Kit's at and his interpretation. It's funny that he has seen the news about the capture of the Nomad, congratulates his dad on it, and mocks Heloise for turning all girly in New York and not understanding the truth of what happened with the Nomad. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. Your thoughts on that very quick story?
I liked it because it reminded that Kit, where Kit is, kind of like what he's up to. It was the 11th and the 16th Phantoms, the previous Phantoms, and it kind of keeps him relevant. I thought it was good, and then what I'm hoping is that when the attention turns to Kit Junior, however way, then maybe we will have another short story of, say, Heloise, like, the roles reversed or something like that as well, to kind of keep Heloise relevant when we focus more on Kit Junior. Stephen, any thoughts?
I think you guys have said it all. Nothing really much more. I do like the fact how it's really for his own mental health, how he's written a letter home. And then he's had to burn it, But I love it how he even goes as far as to address the envelope and all that sort of stuff. and then it's off in the wind in the smoke.
Well, it's the second time, and actually we might get you to lead off on the next story, Steve. But it's the first of two references in this issue, in this pair of stories about Box 7 Mohitan. So still random folklore and that sort of stuff. So anyway, that said, do you want to tell us about your thoughts on Heloise Comes Home, Steve?
Well, I really like the story, and this picks up after Heloise has brought down the nomad, and she's wandering around the streets of whatever city it was.
Manhattan. Was it Manhattan?
Manhattan, New York, somewhere around there, wherever the Bryson School is.
Mm.
And yeah, just the Phantom elements are in it, like getting to the consulate, or is that what you call it? And no ID, but it's got the good marks. That's the pass in. The Phantom just lurking in the background, dressed as an ordinary man or ordinary helicopter pilot. Luaga's there. It's a good, fun story. It's a good reunion story, and everyone's back and happy, and we're all good. And then it turns into that cracking. Before we get to the rescue story, we've got poor what's her name, Cardia, who's really dealing with a lot of stresses at the moment, and pushes her literally to the edge. And so that's going to be an interesting story development and themes going forward here. Her relationship with Heloise and what's going to happen with Cardia next, in particular with her mental health. And then we get the rescue mission going to the Nomad's fortress, to try and rescue Cardia's mother. And of course, being the Phantom, the good guy. Spoiler alert: the good guy wins. But the Phantom says to write a letter to Walker, Box 7, and so there's a second reference to it, and someone will answer you and will be able to get in contact with you. Is that a good summary of the story without giving too much away?
Did you enjoy it?
Oh, Uncle Dave! I forgot about Uncle Dave. He's a real important man in the anti-terrorist world now, isn't he?
As it turns
out.
He
was.
Yeah. So I just thought he was a policeman, but now he's a...
No, in... what was it? In just before Lee Falk passed away in the late 90s, he actually switched. And he got into the anti-terror. There was terror at the Opera or something like that, which was 1999 story, which was where there's a story about him being in the anti-terrorist department, Homeland Security or whatever it is.
It all works within his wheelhouse, doesn't it? He's a lot of people would remember him as the chief of police in New York, and
he's the guru.
Yeah, so
he's the guy you go to.
It's an area, isn't it? So
yeah. So this story goes for 9 months, which is quite a long time.
Well, like we said, it's kind of like two stories in one. You've got the welcome and reunion, and then you've got the rescue mission.
Yeah. I thought page 35, I'll just show it up there for our YouTube viewers. Hopefully you can see that. I wonder who wrote that, whether that was a Tony DePaul who wrote that in, or whether it was a Mike Manley who...
Are we talking about the Trump tweet?
Yeah, about the Trump tweet. And then the guy saying, I know, does he have to have security clearance? So I thought that was a bit funny. I just wonder which of the creative teams kind of put that in. And then there also...
The next page 2 pages over on 37, I remember discussing this back at the time. I can't remember if it was Mike or if it was Tony. I'm pretty sure it was a Mike idea, with the reflection of the Phantom in the windscreen when he's laying out his...
that's cool. Yeah,
so that's on page 37.
Top of page 37. Yeah, I don't know that I'd picked up on that. That's a really cool. That'll be Mike Manley effect. Just going back to that same panel you were looking at, Jim, with the Trump tweet in it. On the right hand side, there's a model kit, a Revell 1:72 scale kit, and that'll be Mike Manley. He's loving doing those things as well. Or maybe it's a little homage to Terry Beattie, who is always posting about the model kits that he's making at the moment.
So on page 37 also, there's a panel of the Phantom laying out his costume, all the extra gear. There was actually, when this story originally came out, there was an article on our website about basically Mike and Tony DePaul realising that if you're going into battle, you're going to probably need to carry some extra ammo clips. So, that's a pretty cool reference. And then, yeah.
How do you reckon? Because that was I know Tony when we chatted about it, he was not concerned, but it was a thing that he was thinking about. That how are people going to receive this? How did you guys receive the idea of the Phantom striding into battle with the, all of this extra gear attached?
I think it makes sense, and I like how he explained it. So it's like, extra ammo, medical supplies, different world now. I learned that, the last time he went into battle with them, he needed extra ammo and extra, medical supplies. So, he got to, and, he also talks about it's a different world. He has to be modern. He doesn't go around with that. He doesn't look like Rambo with the gun clips, across his shoulder and stuff like that. But, he knows he's going into battle and he's going to be fighting probably 20, 30 people. So I don't have a problem with it. He explained it, and I think it worked well.
Yeah, and the costume and everything has remained similar for 21 generations, but it hasn't been the same. There wasn't always the pistols by his side. It was swords and stuff like that, and his boots have changed. Yeah. It's just a natural progression.
Agreed. And we were even talking about the tweet, and there's about, there's a dozen shots of smartphones and that sort of thing. It's a modern world. He's not climbing up a telegraph pole to patch into the X-band anymore, unfortunately. But it certainly gave us a cool podcast name. But it's the modern world, and it just makes sense to me. And it was written in really well.
Now, what's actually interesting is, I'm not sure if anyone's actually picked this up. So start off with page 53. You've got there, he's got, count the clips on his chest. It's got 3. And then we go down to 57. You have a look there, he's got 2 on his chest. And then where was, if you look at page 59 at the bottom, you actually see him reloading. Again, I'm showing this up if you're on YouTube and stuff like that as well. Now, on page 61, you will see, at the top of page 61, you will see him reaching for the last clip. And then in the next panel, you actually see that he's got no clips on his chest belt.
I totally missed that.
It's a really cool thing that I hadn't followed that either. It's a great pickup, Germ. And again, whether that's Tony putting a note into Mike Manley saying, "Hey, make sure he uses these up," or Mike just doing that as he goes. It's worked out really well for me, and I'm just going to put in a little humble brag since we're stuck on this page anyway and talking about it, because I was lucky enough through the generosity and the assistance of one Duncan Munro to pick up an original from this section of the comic, the bottom panel on page 60. And because of exactly what you've just said, Jermaine, my original Mike Manley doesn't have the Phantom carrying ammo clips around on his chest. He's already used them all up, so it looks like a more traditional costume in the original I've got. So happy days.
Yeah, so anything else you want to raise about that story? So
I think Stephen mentioned it a couple of times in the two, talking about both stories, and that's the idea of mental health. We've been quite effusive and grateful, I suppose, or acknowledged the work of Mikael Sol in the writing that he's done for Team Fantomen in terms of bringing mental health issues into Phantom stories. And Tony DePaul's doing exactly the same thing here. It is great for Kit's mental health to get out his stories, and then, yes, he has to burn them, but he still had it all written down. We know that that's a great way to look after your mental health, is to write things out. We talked about, we've got depictions twice of Cardia Sahara about to commit suicide, standing on the edge, that sort of stuff. And then in the panels following, where we've been talking about page 66 through to 68, 69, we've got the Phantom actually having a nightmare about the men that he's been forced to kill in this bloodbath, in this action. And that's something else we probably should talk about, is the Phantom quite explicitly has killed people here. And it's a bit of a, something that a lot of traditionalists like, is the idea that the Phantom doesn't kill, and he has here. But he's also dealt with it. He's also processed it through a dream that we watch. And I think that Tony DePaul and the art of Mike Manley is bringing it to us really, really clearly. Not shying away from those conversations about, if this is a real life hero and the Phantom is as real life as anything, he's not a DC or a Marvel. He's an ordinary man, and all of the characters in it are having ordinary mental health problems and dealing with it as well. So kudos to the creative team for not shirking that. And I think it adds. I think that passage of the Phantom's dream, where he's dealing with that action sequence, that's really powerful. And that's one that I hadn't followed so well in the newspaper. And I'm so pleased that it's been put so that you can go through and absorb it in its whole, in its totality, in this collected comic.
It works so well as a collected comic. Like the whole story works really well as a comic, rather than just day by day by day by day. Really,
I think the Saga of the Nomad, now that's a trade paperback that should be collected at some point.
Yeah.
So what do you think about colour? Like, are you liking these stories in colour?
Well, yeah, they look great. But if it was in black and white, they'd still be a good story.
So I just wanted to, I've also got on my hands here Fantomen issue 25-26 of 2020, when these stories were also printed. Now, I'm not sure if you can actually see that again if you're on YouTube or not, but I'm not sure, it probably won't come across very well on podcast. But the top one is the Fantomen issue, which is slightly smaller, and then the bottom one is the Frew comic. And I've matched up the dream sequence that you were talking about, Dan. The Fantomen colours are a lot more crisper and a lot more clean than the Frew ones. Now, I'm not an expert when it comes to paper quality. Paper quality is fairly similar, but it's just interesting that the what do you call it? The color definition is different, and I will say that I think I prefer the Fantomen color.
Is it more glossy, whereas the Frews are more of a matte?
The paper?
Yeah.
No, the paper is basically the same.
Okay.
So the Fantomen paper might be a little bit more whiter, where so it is a better quality, but the thickness is the same, and it's the same, it's the same type of paper. It's just the Fantomen's is probably a little bit more whiter. So I just thought that was worth kind of pointing out and identifying. What's interesting is if we're just going to do these two panels, the gun on the Fantomen is a lot more.
Jim, we can't. You're all muffled because you're behind the comics.
Yeah, we can't hear you, and it's all blurry anyway, mate.
So the gun. This is the front one up the top. The gun, you can see the gun better, but you can't see the gun as well on the on the Fantomen one. So there is some negatives of it, but overall, I think the colour is better on the Fantomen one than the Frew one. Cool. What did you think about the little detective who disappeared?
I really like the way this one started.
Yeah.
There's other. I was reading about movies that kind of do this too, like give you the resolution at the start, and then you see how you reach that point. So I really like how they use that storytelling device right at the start. For it's on the first Sunday when it came out. You know, everything was going well until he showed up. And and it's a fun little story. Like it's not as deep and as the ones we've just been reading. It's bad guys doing bad stuff covertly. They get caught out. The Phantom goes and sorts them out. Not very long from memory. How many? When did this last?
So it's page 72.
There you go. 18th of the 11th, 2018 through to 12th of the 5th. So about 6 months.
About 25 pages. Yeah, about 6 months, yeah. Now, I really liked it. What's interesting, page 83, it's the old man there is actually a depiction of Wolf Rainbow.
Don't bother talking, Jim. We can't hear you.
Jim, every time you hold up a comic, we can't hear you.
Page 83.
It doesn't help.
No.
Yeah.
Couldn't understand a word.
So, Jim, I'm sure what you said there, Jim, and honestly, mate, that even standing to one side, if anything, that made it worse. There's a depiction of Ulf Grunberg on page 83. That's who you're
Page
talking
83. Yeah, so that's Elf Granberg. So it's a depiction of Elf Granberg on page 83.
Yeah. And that's a really cool touch and a nice nod from Jeff Weigel
I think that one was actually Tony DePaul, that one.
Who asked him to do it?
Tony DePaul asked for that one. So Tony DePaul organised that one.
Yeah. And Jeff has just got a style that works really well for replicating real life faces, I think.
Yeah. Anything else you want to raise?
Well, I like it. I like it. Again, I guess fun is the word that's been used. I like the fact that it's a standalone story. I really am enjoying the continuity that the dailies are providing and the movement of the Phantom universe and the everything we've talked about how this ties into the Nomad story. But I also really enjoy the fact that Tony DePaul still has the space to write standalone stories that you can enjoy of themselves without needing to be part of the bigger picture sort of thing.
Yeah, it's just like a nice little break.
Yeah.
Definitely. All righty. Anything else you just want to raise about that issue before we move on?
No, I think we probably spoke about it for longer than I expected to.
Okay, so
Let's
the
take
next
those
one,
newspaper stories more often.
Yes.
the next one is 1883, which is titled "The Poor People's Plague." Now, this one's also in colour. It was a nice surprise getting 2 colour issues in a row.
It was a nice surprise getting a lot earlier than the advertised sales date too.
I think what it was is Frew wanted to get that out so they can actually have their holiday. So good work.
So subscribers actually got this before Christmas, despite the fact that as we record this, it's not on sale in newsagents yet.
It was on sale in my local comic shop though, so that was handy.
It was? There you go. So it's supposed to be in newsagents this Thursday though.
Yeah, so the day this podcast releases will be the day it's released, or the day before or after.
But it's a good example.
Be careful with spoilers this time
because we've had it for 3 weeks already.
Well, maybe not 3 weeks, but
about 3 days.
Yeah. So, Dan, what did you think about this story? And again, we won't talk about the plot as much.
No, I won't talk about the plot as much. Other than to say, I enjoyed this until about halfway, at which point I probably stopped enjoying it as much. And
Is
that
it halfway through the story or halfway when it changes stories?
Sorry?
Halfway through the first story or halfway when it changes?
Probably halfway through the first story.
Right.
Then it started to lose me a bit. And yeah, Sorry, Andrew and Jason, I'm
became
just not a fan of Phantom Crusader. I'm not enjoying those ones much at all, to be honest. So,
was it the zombie elements that you didn't like?
yes.
Yeah. 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 I enjoyed getting it in colour. I enjoyed it kind of being like a prequel for the next installment of Phantom by Gaslight. I don't mind the left field story elements, but I'm kind of sitting on the fence. I'm not a zombie fan either. I'm not a real horror fan. In fact, I actually banned my wife from watching horror films because she would make me stay up, and because she'd be too scared. And I said, I'm not staying up anymore. You're just not allowed to watch them. But I'm going to sit on the fence and kind of see where it's going to go. You know,
I didn't hate it, and I'll still read the next installment of Phantom by Gaslight. I guess there's probably just more supernatural elements, and to the whole Gaslight genre than I really understood. Because
if it's kind of got like a more, I don't know the right word, but more of a normal explanation, I'll be like, yeah, that was quite clever. But if it goes to 28 days later style, or I'll be like, nah, it's not really mine.
Yeah.
So I would have thought 28 days later style would work, because that was fairly what's the word?
Like grounded in reality.
Yeah, somewhat. But, well, I don't think it's quite topical. Yes, it's been turned up to 11 or 12.
That's a good.
But everyone's talking about, the plague, and everyone's been going back in history about other times things that happened. Yeah. So it's very topical, just turned up to 11. And, playing the blame game about, where'd it come from, who we're going to keep out. There's things about get the Prime Minister on. We've got to stop the boat. So that's anyone who knows Australian politics. Yeah, there it is on page 8.
That's like the first thing that gets done with the new government.
Yeah, stop the boats.
There's a number of really topical pieces of dialogue through it, isn't it?
Oh, there is.
I like the way you explained the dialed up to 11 or 12. I think that's a very good way of explaining it.
And that's what gives it its fantastical element. So there's a whole bunch of things that we're familiar with. When you talk about the plague, you see those guys in the big crow masks, or the big beaks, and everyone's so scared about COVID, and they should definitely be aware of it and concerned about it. But this is just putting the hysteria up to 11 or 12, and making a story out of it. I was talking about colour before, and I know we're going to do a colour program later, but I really like the way that Jason does his colours. Very big, very bold, and just the way he does them, so people aren't always like black or white or different shades in between. But so even there on page 3, people in the background are pink, or they're blue, or they're yellow, and that type of thing. He uses colours to make to focus where you got to go. Yeah. And then other parts, they're more natural, like on page 5. The colours are much more natural in the first 2, and then once the shock and horror and everything comes out, that's when the different colour palette happens. I also, after reading this, I thought, I wonder how much realism is in this. And there's a doctor in here, I've forgotten her name, Charlotte something. Charlotte Adams, Dr. Charlotte Adams. I thought, maybe she was a famous plague doctor back in the day. The only reference I can find to a Dr. Charlotte Adams was Home and Away back to about 2001, 2002. So I know maybe Jason was a Home and Away
fan,
you reckon?
and it snuck in.
I like Jason's colours. I prefer his stories in colour than black and white. And I love your points about the way he does his colours as well.
Yeah,
I think No, I was just going to say that I think that Jason's art can be really busy. There's so much going on in each panel, and the way that he, exactly as you said, Steve, uses colours really to separate layers and focus the eyes around, helps you distinguish around all that busyness. So,
That's
and the
very
fact that he's doing it all himself, so he's written the story, he's drawn the story, and he's coloured the story, so he knows exactly where the viewer's eye should be going.
And it's interesting that in the message from the publisher, Dudley has said that they were going to, their intention was to publish it in black and white. Jason supplied a black and white version, but also the colour, sort of unsolicited. And they were so impressed with it that they used the colour. And I think that I might be drawing on a conversation I had with Jason 18 months ago now at Supernova, but I think that he does that quite a lot, is color pieces as well, almost as part of his process. And then it's up to Frew to decide which way to go with it.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. I think you and I are in that same conversation where everything he draws, he provides to him, the two versions. So it's and I completely agree with what you've said. Sometimes I don't always like Jason's work because of the busyness and stuff, but this I was very impressed with, especially with the colouring, and I think it adds a new dimension and a new appreciation for me to his work.
I like it how it's still found by Gasol, but it's a completely new story. We've got some, a lot of the similar characters, but we no longer have that huge conglomerate of bad guys, and there's no Julie and no other fella.
Left those elements behind, haven't they?
So it's kind of like starting. I don't want to say starting afresh because the other guys might come back into it again, but put it back in that world with a story that's relatable. Another thing, just as I'm flicking through it again, I don't know if you guys have got Stan, but I started watching. Last year, sometime, this series called Penny Dreadful. I think that's what it's called. I started watching. I watched the first season; it was pretty good. Haven't got into the second season. And it's kind of got that sort of element. So if you'd watched the Penny Dreadful series on Stan, you might get a bit of a kick out of this story.
There you go.
Now, Dan, you said you're not a fan of what's his name?
Phantom Crusader.
Phantom Crusader.
Yeah, I did get carried away there where Stephen asked me about it, and probably put my cards on the table. Look, no, I'm not. I'm not. I wasn't a fan of the Night Phantom, any of those stories that I think it was Clayster Matthews penned. One of them, I think maybe the first one, was Jamie Johnson's first cover years and years before he became a regular artist. No, I'm not a fan of these. This isn't the Phantom, it's a different character that I am not familiar with and am not warming to.
I would rather get, whether it's Gaslight or some of the the Phantom's World stuff that Egmont have produced, or even the Fantomen Kids, or even Kid Phantom. I would prefer some of that stuff as your comic fillers than something like Phantom Crusader.
I'll also Paul Mason's Phantom in Nam. We know that he's.
I'm looking forward to hearing stories.
I'd love to be seeing.
There's plenty of options,
and
they're all more Phantom than Phantom Crusader.
Correct.
So we've just named half a dozen different options, So hopefully we don't, and I like the creators of that Phantom Crusader, but it's just it's.
Oh look,
maybe it would be better if it was in a giant size.
Well, that's what I was just about to say. Would you guys appreciate better if it was in a giant size rather than a regular issue?
Yeah. Look, as I would have said last time we reviewed comics, I really like Andrew Constant's writing. I really love the Raven stories that he did. So certainly nothing against the creative team. I just don't like this character.
Yeah. So
I don't mind it. I would like to see more Phantom, of course, but maybe this would work better in a giant size Phantom where you're used to seeing other characters.
Yeah.
I don't mind the story. I thought I liked the story.
The story's good.
Yeah, I thought the story was, a fight on the drawbridge or the entry into the castle, trying to take back, and all the odds are against him, but he's going to have a crack. And I'm wondering if the creators will listen to this on page 27, where the bad guy is, I don't know, saying something about how that's right, she's going to take over castles once he left for the foreign lands. There's got her goons in the background. I don't know if you guys go into comic shops much, but there's a thing there about the Batman who laughs, I think, and one of these the guys in the background kind of looks the same. He's got these bars over his eyes and got this kind of like helmet thing. He's not smiling though, but I think it was dark metal or heavy metal. I don't know, some sort of DC imprint, but it's a different way of doing Batman, kind of combined with it. I don't know the story. I didn't read it, but it just showing me. It just gives me an element there. If the big not, I'm talking about top of page 27.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
If the fellow was smiling, I definitely think it was a throwback, but he's not. He just kind of looks like a, big grump. But he's got the headgear that kind of reminds me of that Batman that I've seen in the comic shop.
Yeah.
Probably
Now,
from some different
guys,
dimension.
anything in the forum letters that perk your interest?
Wow, funny you should say that, Jermaine. There's a letter here by a fellow named Rod. Good old Rod. He's a sprightly young 83 and a half. And he mentioned, we talked about the Raven stories just earlier, and I think he was looking forward to it. Yeah, nothing. He's liking it. And Dudley replies to him, "I'm glad you like it, Rod. Triple well, positive feedback. It's all good. Sadly, this may be the first and last time we ever see these two characters appearing together, unless we can convince the licensor otherwise. For reasons unbeknown to us, they have objection to the Phantom appearing with any other heroic characters, which at this juncture puts the kibosh on any of our plans to explore the idea further. We will see what can be negotiated." Now, if that means that we can't get stories like Shane Foley's Scorpia, or any of those other combination stories where we had the Phantom show up with Sir Falcon, those fantastic stories with the Raven, or any others that can just explore different stories, well then KFS need to pull their head out of their backside. Does that mean if you don't want the Phantom working with other people, does that mean we're never going to see Defenders of the Earth again? We're never going to see, well, some people might not like the King's Quest or whatever it was, things where they work with Flash Gordon and Jungle Jim and all those other guys. Are we just going to see standalone, which is fine. Standalone Phantom stories have been great for 85 years, but don't just cut off another vein of gold. The stories with the Shadow there, the deep dive, I think, is in one of the later stories.
Yes, part 3 in this issue, which we'll be reviewing soon.
So, well, fair enough if you don't want to mix up with Catman. I don't really like Catman, but all the other guys, I thought they were pretty good. And we have the Phantom and Mandrake again. Like, maybe Fog did it.
Yeah, it's very. If it's all these stories in this issue, or whether it's just the Raven, or whether it's the standalone issues, or whatever, but it's very. If it is what we're thinking it is, it's very short-sighted. I completely agree. I'm hoping it's just the regular issues that it can't be. That if there is any team ups, it has to be in the giant size. That's what I'm hoping. But I must admit, I read that as well, and I thought, oh no.
Yeah,
so
no more team ups at all. I did. Well, I've only just read the comic today. I've sent a message to Dudley. He's doing his own thing. It's New Year's and whatever. Maybe the response will come in next month's Phantom Forum. But as of yet, there's been no response. But it's only been like a few hours, so I wouldn't expect it anyway.
It is the 2nd of January. The man's entitled to a holiday.
That's right.
No, it's not.
Doesn't it be bested by us?
Yeah. So talking about team ups, Dan, anything you want to add to that response?
Oh no! Other than I've enjoyed the Raven and the Raven stories, I said that, and Death Dive, which we're about to talk about, is another cool story. So, and Defenders of the Earth, we're looking forward, and we'll talk about the toys that are coming out for Defenders on the Earth later this year. So, the Phantom is a character that can work in a team up. Probably not. We're not going to see a Justice League
for it, yeah.
But there would seem to be a place for it, and why would you, or whether you believe it's a vein of gold or a vein of bronze, why would you cut off anything? So interesting.
Yes. All right. So the next giant size issue, which is 15, which has got another retro goodness style cover from Glenn Lumsden. I really love his covers. So this has got a Charlton story, which is Band of Betrayers, which is a 1970 Charlton story, written by Norm de Plum and drawn by Jim Appario. It's got Deep Dive, Part 3, which is written and drawn by Glenn Lumsden, which was The Phantom and Shadow. And then the other Phantom story is Further Scorpius Epilogues. I think there's more epilogues than actual story.
There was a lot of chapters.
Written in art by Shane Foley as well. So we'll just do these three stories. Any comments?
Well, I'll start just quickly on the cover. I think this is one of my favourite giant size covers, and it was very close to my top three when I was voting. Didn't make it into the top three, I'm sorry, Glenn, but it was certainly one that was in consideration when I was voting for the fan favourite survey, which I'm sure we're going to spruik at some point towards the end as well. But make sure you jump on chroniclechamber.com, follow the links to the Best of Frew 2020 survey that we've got going. Really enjoy it's the Phantom saluting his other comic character friends sort of thing, and does separate them, which is kind of what we were just talking about. But anyway, I really enjoyed the cover. The stories, the highlight for me was Death Dive, Part 3. There's Glenn Lumsden posted on Facebook about having initial regrets that he didn't have the story finished in time to go into giant size 14, which would have meant that it came out in consecutive issues, but actually thanking Glenn Ford for telling him, no, the story's not ready yet, go and finish and do it properly, and publish it. And Glenn Lumsden was quite appreciative of that and quite chuffed with how the comic had finished out. And I'd have to say I agree. I really enjoyed Death Dive as a story. It's absolute highlight from all.
Now, it's quite violent. There's people getting blown up by explosives, a guy getting his ear shot off. Did that worry any of you, or is it just like, again, the fact that they were playing hard, the Phantom and the Shadow kind of had to play hard to kind of match them?
Oh, the Phantom's lucky. The fella's still got his ear there. He's just missing half of it.
Did any of you have any problems with it, or not really? I personally didn't.
No, not at all. I'd be quite happy for my 11-year-old to read this. It's not glorified violence. Yes, it is violence, but it's a comic book too. So,
and it's not gory like Game of Thrones, where the panels have got blood splatter all over them and stuff like that as well. So
it's phenomenal though, isn't it?
Oh. The detail is what I love, just like the cross hatching and stuff like even something just as small as on page 13. You can see the cross hatching. I'll talk about it, then point it up and not say anything while I'm pointing it. Like on the rope.
Yeah.
Just the detail on the rope, on the shadow on the shadow on page 12. I was talking to Glenn Lumsden, and then the pages on page 14 and 15. I was talking to Glenn about the story, and he was really happy with the way that his work portrayed or was printed in this issue, how it how the fine details that he drew came out in the story as well. So Yeah.
This sequence, this story, because it's a three-parter, this is the third part. Wasn't this the story that got Glenn Lumsden the cartooning award for 2020? The Ledger, am I right
I
there?
think it was.
Ooh.
I think it was.
Did
Can
he
certainly
get an award or just a nomination?
No, I think he was the top award.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I have to double check that.
Yeah. No, you're right.
And certainly the hands up. I haven't read the other ones. I've got no idea what the candidates were who were opposing to him, but they'd have to be very good to stack up against this because the artwork is phenomenal throughout. I'd really I'd like to actually see this. It feeds into the conversation we've just had, I suppose. But I'd actually really like to see the three parts brought together and published in a regular Phantom comic. And you could do that later this month. Because it's not in, there'd be Frew readers who don't pick up giant size and would not have seen it at all. And I think most giant size readers would love the opportunity to read it again as a combined package. I hope that team up not in the regulars is not a real thing, because I think, and Dudley, if you're listening, that's my idea for 2020. Put Death Dive into a single issue for us.
Well, and then the other idea is that, like you said, some readers of giant size wouldn't be reading the regular issues, and some buyers of the regular issues wouldn't be buying the giant size. So you could do them as the backup story as well, because they've got the different parts, and it just and it's a good cross-platform for people to be able to go and buy the giant size, or if they're only reading the regular issues, it's like, hey, this is what type of stuff you're going to get in the giant size. Go buy it. So
perhaps I would like to see it compiled into a single issue, personally.
Maybe not this year. Maybe you wait a year or two, or put it in an annual. Anything else you want to talk about deep dive?
No, if you put it in a single issue, make it colour, eh? Just bring that argument back in again.
Yeah.
Just sort of something different if you want to put it in this year.
Yeah. Okay, now I must admit, I'm not sure if your guys have got this, but for Shane Foley's story, it's all printed crooked.
What page are we starting on for that?
Go 44, 45.
Mine's pretty straight.
Yeah, so
I'd call that straight.
If you look at mine, you can see the panel at the top's gone. Even if you look here on page 44, there's some of the colours. So I'm glad it's just my copy and not it didn't actually happen for everyone else.
No, I see what you mean now. Very, very minimal. Geez, you must have an eye for detail, Germ.
Well, on page 48, I've got the whole top panel. The whole top panel, all the words are gone. So it might have happened with some other issues, but not every issue.
Are you excited because that means that everybody else has got the story properly, or that you've got a unique variant that you can claim is worth twice the price? No,
I don't think that's really the case. Now, something we need to talk about on page. Now, when you read the story, the princess or the Queen Scorpia, did you recognise her, or do you know her name? Because her name's Shiva. So she's the villain. Well, she's kind of like a villain, but do you remember Prisoner of the Himalayas, which is like the fourth daily story? There's Bart, someone who was actually an Australian bad guy, and he tried to take over and become the Maharaja or something like that. So Shiva was his girlfriend. And the reason I want to point that out is because in a past podcast, we were talking about Queen Scorpio, and we said that it would be really cool if she was past someone who the Phantom has already dealt with. And so what's actually interesting is when we discussed that, Shane Foley listened to it and he actually rewrote this part to include that because we suggested it. So a little bit of a bragging moment for us.
There you go.
I thought having is it Kit, the Catman Junior, is a Planet Man, or dressed up as the Thing? But that was a nice touch, getting him. He's like Nightwing now. I guess he's broken away from Catman. He's going to be his own hero.
Yeah, no, I think that's good, and people have kind of already been introduced to Kit and stuff like that, and so yeah, no, I think it's good. I'm enjoying it. I wouldn't mind seeing what he's kind of got up his sleeve for next. So, but apparently it's Judgment Day. We've got 56 at the bottom panel. So I'll be interested to see what Judgment Day is. Anything else you want to raise?
Nope.
Cool. All right. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to hand over to Mikael's Lick, who is going to do a review of Fantomen issue 1 of 2021.
A new year of Fantomen comic books. However, this issue, number 1 of 2021, that I'm about to review here, is planned on the 2020 budget, so it reminds a lot of some of the other 2020 issues with reprints and all. It starts off with this amazing cover by Henrik Sahlström, as we expect from him, and then we have this editorial page that actually has some great news, that the amount of subscribers that is usually declining around 10% per year, this year stayed the same. Yay! And then there's quite funny mail from it's like the spam mail from the Nigerian prince wanting to fish some money, and Mikael Soul makes a funny remark. I like it. Then the main story is Of the Same Blood by David Bishop and Cesar Spadari. It's a reprint from 2004 that continues the death of a phantom that was reprinted in the issue 21 of 2020. As I mentioned in that review, I really enjoy these stories about the Pirate Queen, and this is no exception. And it makes me think that I wish that all the previous Phantom has such memorable storylines, so you could recognize them easily by the 5th the Phantom or the 18th Phantom, like this one, and the first Phantom with the origin story, and the 6th with the founding of the Jungle Patrol and with Redbeard and all of that. But maybe we get there someday. Then the issue has this publishing schedule. Amazing art by Luca Arbata, and to note here is that issue 1 is released already on 29th of December of 2020, and the issue number 2 is released on Thursday the 7th of January, only 9 days later, so that's quite a bit shorter than it used to be. And also from that on it starts to be published on Thursdays instead of Tuesdays, and that's it's not a huge change, but Tuesday has been the day for many years, so a change nonetheless. Then we have a second Phantom story in this comic book. It's The Fencing Master by Lee Falk and Özkan Eralp, and that's because they say Lee Falk because it's a remake, so this makes it a reprint of this story from 1970s. That is the remake of the McCoy story, The Heavyweight Champion, from 1956, and it's pretty funny actually for the time, and the art is quite good, I would say. Then we have a preview of double issue 2-3. looks like a continuation of the stories about the 22nd Phantom set in the future. That you might know that I really enjoy, and I think this cover is amazing. And then there's 2 Falk and Barry stories: The Adventure of Lucy Carey and The Mystery of the Islands of the Dogs. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that issue. It should come any day now. And that's it for the reviews this time. So let's start talking about news. And the first news is a big one in Sweden. As Chronicle Chamber earlier reported, Mikael is leaving Egmont. During his many years as editor of Fantomen and writer of multiple stories, I want to thank him for a job well done. I really enjoyed the direction he took with the Fantomen and its content, and I think he did a great job. I will be missing his influence. And let's see if there are more news from the other Chronicle Chamber guys. Happy Fantoming!
Alrighty, thank you, Mikael, for your reviews. Mikael also talked a little bit about the news about Mikael Sol stepping down. Now, this kind of came a bit of a shock to myself and kind of came a bit of out of the blue. I must admit, I kind of thought that probably in the last year, maybe 2 years, he had hit that top, the top level. It was kind of on the rise, and then he was, I still thought he had a lot more in him. I believe it was for some personal reasons as well, like with travel and his new job's a lot closer to home and everything like that as well. Obviously, lifestyle balance is most important, but I think we will miss Mikael Sol as editor for Fantomen.
I think shocked but not surprised was probably my initial reaction. It came out of the blue, like you said, but when you stop and think about it, the Phantom, and Mikael has said this himself, the Phantom is not a lifelong passion for him. He came to it through work and research and did the best job that he could because it was his job, and he did a great job at it. And we got about 10 years, and you're right, it was really starting to hit his straps, I think. But 10 years is a long time in any one job, and people need change and to move on and all the rest of it. And I certainly don't begrudge him doing that. So I will continue to stay subscribed to Mikael's YouTube channel and learn all about these Lego that he builds and enjoy his work there. But I guess on behalf of myself and I think probably the whole of Chronicle Chamber, we thank Mikael very much for the work that he's done and appreciate it. And as we said in the web post that we wrote up about it, he's big shoes to fill, and Fantomen are going to need to get it right with somebody to step in because it's a challenge. It's a challenge for the global Phantom community. If Egmont, Team Fantomen are no longer there or drop off in any way, it will have far-reaching effects.
Yeah, and I think we saw that with the issues in 2020, which were mainly reprints because the budget had been cut. Thankfully, the budget has increased for 2021. I think that, like him fighting for the budget to be increased, along with the fact that, obviously the flag cover of the LGBTQ community. But I also think as the art helping with the Chronicle Chamber book, they're probably the 3 things that will probably stay with me. Is the fact, or if I was to add a 4th, it would be the fact that he actually communicates with us and talks to us about things that are happening and gives us comments and and stuff like that. So they're probably the 4 things that probably will stay with me about his his era or his time that he spent on the Fantomen comic. So I think what will probably happen is he said he's got everything planned up until March or something like that. And then he'll probably, they'll find whoever's going to be the new editor. And then there'll probably be between now and say when he officially stops, they'll probably work alongside, and then Mikael will give him a crash course in the Phantom. And we'll probably go from there. And I guess we'll have another podcast guest that we'll have to try and hunt down as well.
Fingers crossed. We'll have to make sure Mikael leaves a few stickers or a key ring on the desk when he leaves, so that the incoming editor has our contact details.
That's probably not a bad idea. We'll have to get onto that one. So thanks, Mikael, for everything that you've done. We wish you the best with your future job, and good luck finding someone to fill those big shoes.
We do need to acknowledge at this point that we lost Steve and East from the podcast while Mikael Lick was delivering his reviews.
They were that long, Mikael. Your reviews were that long that you put Stephen to sleep.
We started later tonight than we probably wanted to, because I was still knee deep in paint buckets. So sorry, Steve, for delaying the start and forcing you to hit the sack.
Yes. All right, so we'll move on. And the next set of news is the Best of Frew survey is now on our website. So it must be said that this is an entirely fan-created survey, or a fan survey. So this isn't run, in a sense, by Frew. It is endorsed by Frew in the sense that we do partner with Frew. But it's not Frew that actually has organised it. In other words, we're willing to do it, so they're not going to compete because it's one less thing for them to do. So they're more than happy for us to do all the hard work. And then basically it gives them an idea of what the fans like. So if there are covers that you like, if there's stories you like, make sure you go and vote. By the time this podcast comes out, there will be about 4 or 5 days left of it being published, where you can still vote. So make sure you go and vote if you haven't already. And there are 5 prizes this year.
And there's only 85 responses to, well, I say only 85 responses is a good number of responses, and certainly indicative of where people are at. But that's much less than our regular podcast listening numbers. So if everyone who listens to this podcast jumps on, we'll have a much better indication of what everyone else thinks. And certainly that number is a long way away from the finishing number from many of our past surveys. Yes. So while we've got early indications of some front runners, where I'm hopeful that we'll get a lot more responses to.
Do you want to quickly go over a couple of the pre-runners? I've got it in front of me.
Well, maybe without going who's first, second, third, fourth, whatever. Just maybe some of the what people are considering. All
right, so these are kind of like the top. So the favourite covers. So this is the top 4. We've got 1861, which is by Luca Alberta, 1866, which is done by Alex Tripp, 1869, which is done by Daniel Picciardo, 1876, which is by Grange Wallace. This is one of his Ibis mysteries. And then the other one is 1877. So there's the top, kind of like the top 5 for the favourite covers of the year.
1877 was another Daniel Picciardo, wasn't it?
1877, yeah, another Daniel one as well. Now, the favourite Frew story so far, so we are looking at the fight against Singh, which is, I'm quite proud and happy to see that up there. Held to Account by Duncan Munro, which is in issue 1869. The Ibis Mystery, which isn't a real surprise. And then this one might be a surprise to some people, but it's not a surprise to me. The Adventures of Lucy Carey, which is done by Lee Falk and Simon Barry. Okay, so then we'll go down to the favourite overall issue. So again, I'll do probably 4 or 5 here. So we've got 1858, which is the 2020 annual special, which was the Island of Eden special. 1866, which is one of the stories of the fight against Singh, which is the 22nd Phantom Saga. 1869, which is the Held to Account story, which also features, that's the story by Duncan Munro and Jeff Weigel, and also a Prince Rex story. 1877, The Adventures of Lucy Carey, and it also has the story by Peter Anderson and Raphael Dantes, which is The Outlaws. That doesn't really surprise me either. And then the other one will be the Frew trade paperback number 3, which is the Trades saga. So that's kind of like where, early indications of where the votes is kind of like at the moment. Anything that jumps out at you?
Oh, there's a couple of surprises for me in there. Yeah, but I'm probably not going to go too heavily into them because we've got a best of 2020 podcast coming soon. So I'll keep my powder dry for that episode, I think. But if the results finish the way that they look at the moment, there's a couple of surprises there for me. So
yeah, no worries. All right. Well, the next bit of news, which is maybe the most exciting bit of news over the Christmas period, was the fact that NECA Toys has announced that they're going to be doing their first wave of the Defenders of the Earth line in the first quarter of 2021, which will likely be February. So as most people will be aware with Boss Fights and also now NECA, they have a line and then they do a wave. So we've got 3 characters in the first wave, which will be the Phantom, Ming, and Flash, which are probably the most popular 3. Now, Dan, I believe you are going to be bringing up some images, so for our YouTube viewers can have a bit.
Yep. So if you're on YouTube, you can follow along with us as we scroll through the website here. But this is the link that we shared on Facebook at chroniclechamber.com on Facebook. You can look for us there and be getting the access to this as soon as we find out about it. But if I just scroll down there, we can see some close-ups of the 3 characters: Flash Gordon, Ming, and the Phantom. I know this is a Phantom podcast, but of the 3 figures, is that picture that it looks like there, he's certainly the least detailed. There's the least detail on his costume. Ming, in particular, the detail for this figure is amazing, isn't it?
It is. And you're right about the Phantom, but I think that's kind of to be expected because realistically, all he is just the one color leotard.
Oh, for sure. I'm not being critical about it. It is what it is. Because certainly I guess it just speaks to the quality of the product that they put out. And even though the Phantom has got less detail to his costume and stuff, if we go down, and look at this pose where they posed him with a, that's just fantastic. I mean, the detail in the muscles and the facial expression and the fist. I'm betting that if that was in focus, we'd see a really clear skull ring and good mark. So I'm very excited by the way this is looking. Yeah.
So the price is about can't remember what the price is. I think it was 30 or 35 US, which works out to be about 50 or 60 Australian.
It's not cheap, is it?
Might be a little bit more, maybe 70 Australian.
By the time we get posted.
Yeah, it's not cheap, but you got to remember these are a lot bigger than the Boss Hero ones.
What's the size of these ones?
I think these are the 6-inch ones, where the Boss Heroes were the 4-inch.
Yeah. Okay.
So
look very posable.
Yeah.
And if I scroll back up here, we can see what each character comes with. And so the Phantom has got 2 sets of hands that he comes with. It's a bit hard to see the weapons, but obviously there's the gun and a couple of can I zoom in on that? Yes, I can. And a couple of flash sticks or something by the looks. A couple of things that traditionalists will note. He doesn't have the striped undies, but that is a Defenders of the Earth thing. Phantom never had the striped undies in Defenders of the Earth. The other thing is that's not Devil. What?
No. Well, Devil's not in Defenders of the Earth.
No, he's not. No, he's not.
So that is Zuffy.
It's an interesting choice. Why Zuffy?
Well, Zuffy was in the original Defenders of the Earth.
But he wasn't really affiliated with the Phantom.
Well, he was affiliated. He was probably best friends with, what's the little boy's name? I can't remember the little boy's name.
Not Rick.
No.
Mandrake's son.
Or Mandrake's adopted son. I can't remember.
The point is, I guess, I'm probably a little disappointed that that's there. You know, that's not going to be at the front of my collection for sure. Zuffy, he'll stand somewhere towards the back. There was a Jaguar, a Panther, that I probably would have preferred to see.
That was with Jeddah.
That's fine. It's a better association than Zuffy.
Well, I would prefer the Panther with Jeddah. Now, the reason why, this is just a guess, the reason why I think we've got Zuffy is because if you look at the other weapons and accessories that you get with Ming, Flash, there's not much with the Phantom. So, you know, Ming's got a staff, he's got he's got the hands, he's got, the punch thing and the sword, and then Flash has got 3 hands, a sword, and stuff like that. So I think Zuffy is probably a filler to kind the pack a little bit. I'm not too worried about it.
I'm not going to not buy it. It's just something I'm not going to display. I've just brought up here, if you're on the packaging that comes with each, and that I guess shows what you're talking about the filler. Zuffy up in the top corner of the Phantom's box there is something that makes it look like you're getting more in there. So
the packing's amazing as well. Do you want to scroll across as well so you can have it if you're on YouTube the other way? You got the side.
The back of the boxes.
Yeah, and then so what we discussed is that we assume that Wave 2 will have Mandrake and Lothar.
Yeah.
And at the back there, you can actually see Mandrake and Lothar. Can you zoom in?
No, that's as far as I go. So.
The package is great. That's Wave 1. It'll be interesting if there's going to be anything else with Wave 2, along with Mandrake and Lothar. If there was, I would probably assume it would be one of the ice robots, or is it Gurax? No, not Gurax.
Not the kids, you don't think?
Sorry?
Not the kids?
No, I think they might be Wave 3, and then you might do like the 3 of them, or how many is it? The 4 of them. And then that will probably depend on how successful these are. I think it's smart doing these 3 first because these are probably the most popular.
Yeah.
And it will enable them to kind of like get most of their money up front, which will then be able to use to get the other waves. But will also be able to identify whether there's actually a market for it or not.
Yeah. So as a collector, Germ, do you think you're going to get a Flash Gordon, a Ming, and a Phantom, or are you just going to focus on getting a couple of Phantoms, or what? No commitments, obviously, and your wife's not listening and never will to this podcast. So, what are your thoughts at the moment? I definitely want 2 Phantoms. Yeah.
I will probably get like the 2 Phantoms up front, and then I'll probably like get some of the others as they go. But getting, at $70 each, getting 2 Phantoms, that's $140. Getting, that's $280. I don't know how much I can hide that from the missus.
Yeah. And I've got a Mandrake Galoob figure from the 1980s. But that was sort of accidental. He's up on the shelf. I didn't chase him. I'm a Phantom fan. I'm not a Defenders of the Earth fan necessarily. Yeah. So I definitely want. And the problem is, if I get a Ming or a Flash Gordon, I'm going to need to pull them out of the box. So there's going to be the temptation to get 2 each of them as well. And as you're right, the numbers start to stack up pretty quickly. When you're doing that sort of stuff. Now,
what may be an option, and this will be something that I'm going to be asking, is maybe ask your comic book shop if they are getting them in. Because if they're then getting them in, you can maybe lay by them, or it might work out to be $80 or $90 each. Well, because they've got to make their profit. Yeah. But it might mean you can lay by them instead of having to kind of buy the 3 or the 4 at the time, which it's a little bit easier getting $20, $30 a week or a fortnight past the wife than $300.
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly one ahead of you. I've already forwarded this link on to my local comic book guy, and he's excited too. So if NECA will do it, and they're supposed to be getting sold in Walmarts in America, so that's a significant distribution channel. Yeah. So you'd think if they're organised enough to be able to do that, then surely some orders from overseas will be well received.
Yeah. No,
so it comes down to Phantom fans hassling their LCS though, because then all of a sudden, if NECA are getting orders from dozens and dozens of Australian stores, then hopefully they'll jump on board.
Yeah, exactly. It's very exciting. February is not far away, so I'm going to have to probably order some of them quickly. All right, so this will be our last bit of news, and so we might actually hit the 1 hour 30 mark. This is something that we haven't actually published on our website at the time of recording, but Wick Publications, which is a Germany company, we've talked a little bit about Wick Publications before. They now have the license to produce some of the old Bastia Phantom stories that were previously unpublished. They're being touched up, dialogues being added, redone and stuff like that. And then the information's still a little bit sketchy from what we've been told and what we're kind of remembering from past conversations. Is the first issue will be from around in May, and there's likely to be 2 of those a year. So if you don't remember, we have an article with Peter Mennington, who was the Bastia writer. He wrote over 200 and about 250 Phantom stories, which actually puts him at the 3rd most written Phantom stories in the world. So he's a fairly he's a fairly credentialed Phantom writer.
Is that 250 published?
Yep.
Yeah, well.
Behind Claes Ramifi and Lee Falk, of course. In that article, in the interview, he talked about how there were some unpublished stories. Basically, he was just churning them out, and then there were some stories and the artwork had already been done, and then there were some stories that he submitted where artwork hadn't been done. Someone has got a hold of all of that, and basically they're going to start publishing, which is quite exciting. Wick Publications do a publication called Bastia. I don't know how to say the German word, but it's basically Friends of Bastia is kind of like the rough translation. And they do a kind of like a bi-monthly or a once a quarter article on things about Bastia comics. And so seeing he now has all this Phantom information, Phantom drawings and unpublished Phantom stories, and because of the issue 50, which we did a review on, which is on the website, because of that got so much popularity, he thought, well, there must be a market for it. And so he's going to be publishing a story, and quite possibly 2 a year. So that's quite exciting. I will be getting some, and we'll review those as we get them as well. Yeah, so it's quite exciting. Any news that we've forgotten, Dan?
Oh, just a very small bit of news from me, and I guess it's follow on from our Christmas special when we were talking about our Christmas wishes. I'd just like to report for all of our followers that not only did my family come through with the goods of a Phantom heap mug for Christmas, they also got me the jigsaw puzzle from both from Icon, which I'm very excited about. But I've trained my family so well that I actually got 2 Phantom Heap mugs. You can see that one's opened and gone. It's upstairs getting breakfast every morning, and 2 jigsaw puzzles so that I can actually do one and collect one. They know me finally. They can't just get me one of anything. I've got to get 2 so that I can put one in the collection and actually use one. And they're excited by the fact that I'm going to be using things. So just a bit of a follow-up there, a bit of Phantom news from Christmas for me, and a big thumbs up to my family for coming through with the goods.
Yes, and you'll be doing the review from the puzzle as well. So
yeah, I will. The problem is that my son, who loves jigsaw puzzles, Angus is it's part of his mental health, I suppose, as an 11-year-old to sit there and do some. He got 4 jigsaw puzzles for Christmas, and he's halfway through his Harry Potter one. I'm not doing the jigsaw puzzle. I need him to help me sit there and help me with it. So when I review it, I don't know that the puzzle will be put together, but we'll certainly have a look at the insides anyway.
Oh, no, I think the review needs to have the jigsaw puzzle
complete a jigsaw puzzle. Well, yeah. Don't hold your breath then.
But yes, that will be coming out as well. So thanks everyone for listening to us. Hopefully this was an enjoyable podcast for you. Hope you've had a better start for 2021 as 2020. Remember, stay safe, everyone. Please observe all of the needed precautions. I know some people don't believe it's necessary, but it still is necessary. That's a shout out to my younger brother. Stay safe, everyone. Until next time, thank you. We'll just quickly sign off. So remember, our website is chroniclechamber.com. We are all on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're also on YouTube as well. Email is chroniclechamber@gmail.com. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, or other apps, either Android apps like Podbean, Player FM, Castbox, etc., etc. And of course, we're on YouTube. So from myself, thank you, Dan, Stephen, and Mikael. Thank you for your reviews. From myself, happy Fantomen, and see you next time.
Happy Fantomen, everybody. Cheers.
He said, I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice, and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die.
The Phantom,
the ghost who walks,
the Phantom,
enemies beware, the Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom. He fights